Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to our webinar for preparing for the final fly-off. As you are well aware, stage 2 winners were announced last week. Congratulations to all of them. And now we are at the stage of moving forward for the next year and a half or so, moving towards the final fly-off at NASA Ames in the first quarter of 2027. As you can see, we have a full house here with you today. Everyone at GoAERO is here to support you and offer you all the information you might need and to make sure that you are well prepared to make it to the final fly-off. Today, we're going to be sharing some more information about how you actually qualify and get yourselves to the actual event itself. Our team will also be sharing more information with you about your FAA certification and what is required in order to make sure that you have all of your regulatory pieces in place in order to actually fly. We'll give you a little bit of a glimpse about what the final fly-off may look like and what our previous schedules have looked like. And then we'll end the conversation with just a reminder about all of the benefits and partners that we have that you can access. And then finally, our mentoring program that we are looking forward to kicking off very, very soon. We're going to try and get through the information quickly and succinctly because we want to leave time for you to ask questions. Please use the opportunity. We are here to answer any questions we possibly can. We also want to give you the opportunity to let us know. You can do so here afterwards, as you know, how we can best support you over the next year and a half. What information do you need? What lectures would you like to see? What partnerships that you might be interested in? And any and all questions that you might have. So we're here to support you in that vein. So we will go ahead and get started. Sky.
Yeah, so let's talk about qualifying for the fly-off. So on the PureX webpage, you've probably read through kind of on the homepage, hey, here's how the competition runs. And there's this big block on there that talks about a qualifying period. So if this is that block of text, and I will tell you that now there is not much more to add to this than when it was written years ago. But I am going to go through this piece by piece to add just a little bit more color, a little bit more context in case anything might be a little bit unclear. So literally going through piece by piece. So click the next one, please. So first off, a reminder, I think most of our audience today probably did participate in stage 1 or stage 2 or probably both, but that's not required. So again, we are starting from a clean slate. The GoAERO competition right now is just the fly-off competition. Anybody can join. And it may very well be that there are teams that we don't even hear of until they're in the qualifying period and they do all their registration paperwork and say, hey, we're ready to compete. Most teams, however, are kind of already in the system and we know you. That's a good place to start from. So the fly-off is going to be at NASA Ames as a reminder. One more, please. So this is an aerial view of the NASA Ames Moffett Field. I recommend now looking up the airport diagram and things like this. If you see that large white hangar on the left, the big apron in front of that is kind of where the event space will be built out. And then most of the kind of mission courses and things like that will be built primarily centered around that runway that you see on the left of this photo. So that's kind of what we can expect. There will be a lot more details on that later, not from me. So to qualify, you need an aircraft with registration and airworthiness certificate. So this is the same aircraft that you will be taking to the fly-off competition. So the same article, the same tail number that you'll be taking to the competition, and we'll be doing a section of this webinar today about more of that sort of thing. But one of the things that is implied by this line is that not only do you need to have an aircraft that is ready to go to this competition, but you've also flown it outdoors and that you've also figured out how to do that legally. So a big part of the qualifying is showing to us that you are a team to be taken seriously and that we should plan on you being at the competition. And doing this step of that is part of that. It's part of showing that, hey, you're a serious team. You're qualified to show up and make an attempt at this prize. Next chart, please. Yeah, so not only do you have to have flown that aircraft, you need to have shown that you can fly it controllably with a full payload. So it really needs to be at the highest gross weight that you are planning to fly at the competition. This is in reference to qualifying for the GoAERO competition. This is not necessarily sufficient to be deemed safe for flight at this event. So that'll be a separate thing. Talk a bit more about that later. Usually, this is going to be mean for most teams flying with at least 125 pounds of payload on board. To show that you've done that, you need to include the video and a video of your flight. You should include evidence in that video that you do have that payload on board and that you are up to full weight. Needs to be an outdoor flight. You need to take off and land in an area that is small enough to show that you are capable. Can you click through some animations, please? Yeah, you can click through the end of the animations on this slide. So so you need to show that you can take off and land in kind of an area that is saying like, okay, you can controllably land with some precision, and then you need to be able to land at that same place. Next chart. So this you need to show that you have demonstrated this capability in the real world at least 30 days prior to the competition. I think there's an animation on this as well, please. Yeah. So at least 30 days. Emphasis on at least. The if you think you have done this 31 days prior to the competition and you submit saying like, hey, we've done this, and there's anything amiss with your submission, you're out, right? You don't have time to correct it. So you really, really need to get that in as far ahead of time as you possibly can. Uh, And there really will be zero exceptions to this. So anybody who, it doesn't matter if 29 days before the competition you said, hey, not only have we built and flown this thing, but we've flown outdoors and we're fully registered and we've done every single task on our own mock, course that we built. It doesn't matter. You're out. Like the window is closed. We won't even receive your any package you send to us will not even be received because you're not on the list of pre-qualified teams. So that's a hard deadline. Um, I mentioned this before, qualifying and registration for this competition, it's going to require additional documentation and actions. Those are related to safety and event logistics. All the stuff I've talked about before is showing that we can take you seriously as a competitor. But with regards to being able to safely operate at the event, there will be a lot more of that, as well as the logistics of things like how much equipment you're taking, what do you need while there, because we are setting up an event space. You're going to have a paddock where your team is going to be when you're not making mission attempts, things like that. So we need to be able to plan for that. And so we need information review. That will be a lot of that stuff will be more conversational regarding the logistics. And then for safety, our event venue is NASA Ames. It's a Moffett Federal Airfield. It's also an event with members of the public spectators. So that adds extra layers with regards to how how much you need to demonstrate that you're not going to have a flyaway event. In other words, if anything goes out of control or awry, you need to have a system that will most assuredly not leave the boundaries, right? If it's going to crash, it must crash not anywhere near the people. So that's something to think about as you're architecting your system as well. For some of you, that's going to be, there are many different technical ways to implement that, but just keep in mind that is an additional requirement that is not necessarily part of the competition, not necessarily saying like you have to have that to be able to compete for the prize, but you will have to have that to be able to show up and make an attempt for the prize. And then finally, the qualifying opens June of next year. We'll have plenty of contact with teams between now and then, but officially starting in June of next year, that's when you can say, hey, we have our vehicle that we're ready to, that has met this minimum threshold to qualify for this competition. Here we have a video showing that we have this. That's when we can start. Early application and qualifying is advantageous. That's a bit vague as written here. We are, um, I mentioned how there is that hard deadline, right, of December. It's written as December 15th, but because we don't have a hard date for the competition itself, that 30 days before the competition is the hard deadline. I mentioned plenty of incentives not to wait until the last minute, but there are also incentives to do it early. So you don't necessarily need to wait until you have every little thing refined and you've polished everything about your vehicle and your system and your software. You just once you kind of have met that minimum threshold and you say, hey, we've met that minimum threshold, you really should qualify early. Why is it advantageous? For one, it gets you in the conversation. So anything, for example, that is non-compliant, you get a chance to, you have plenty of time to correct that. But also there will be competitive advantages to qualifying early. These are going to be soft advantages. An example of one of these advantages might be, if you've shown that you've qualified early, we're going to be working with you earlier to get you what you need logistically at the competition. But also there will be kind of like tactical and strategic things that you may have an advantage in. An example of this might be if there are only a fixed number of time slots for making mission attempts on each of the mission courses that we build, you will likely have priority with selection of those time slots within constraints if you have one of the earlier qualifiers. So just keep that in mind. And then we're also constantly thinking of other ways to create incentives for getting for qualifying early because it just makes everything more reliable and more predictable for you and for us for planning this event. The earlier you can get this done and show that, hey, this is a team that that we should plan around being there. That's all I have. We're going to do Q&A on all sections at the end, right, Nidhi?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, this may have prompted a lot of questions for the next up section, which I'm looking forward to.
Okay. Sue and Jim.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Sue Gardner, and this is Jim Gardner. We're looking forward to talking to you about FAA processes for your own testing prior to the event and at the fly-off. Next slide, please. So let's start with the U.S. team. So this is a team that is U.S. based, or if you're a foreign team but plan to certify in the United States, this would apply to you as well. In preparation for the GoAERO event, your UAS must first have an FAA registration and second, an airworthiness certificate. Because these aircraft are all going to be larger scale, they will exceed the 55-pound requirement for Part 107. So they will be required to have a experimental airworthiness certificate for either exhibition and research and development in order to operate the UAS in FAA airspace or at a UAS test site. So first step, and this is the most important step, is to get your aircraft registered. We have an expert lecture on how to register your aircraft on the HeroX site. I suggest you go to that and start down the process. Your UAS will have to be marked per Part 45, have those markings. That's also discussed in that expert lecture. Remote ID is required in the United States, and you'll have to have a COA. We are working to have a standardized COA for all the aircraft that are flying in the competition and to simplify things for you and for the FAA and us. So, biggest takeaway here, start the process for your FAA registration for your N number if you haven't had that already. You don't have to wait until you have your full scale ready. You can register it now. Second, the pilot or the operator and an alternate pilot is authorized, so they would be included, must have an FAA pilot certificate or equivalent. UAS pilots must meet the requirements of Part 61 and 67, which is certification for pilots and certification for medical for pilots as appropriate. We do have a great expert lecture that Sandy Umani and John Soltis from the FAA did on the expert lecture series, Your FAA Path Forward, on how to certify your aircraft. And there's also a job aid that is there for certifying your experimental aircraft, exhibition, or R&D. So go to the GoAERO website and take a look at those.
And I think Nidhi was going to take us to one of those websites. I believe.
Sure. Split up. Apologies. Yes. So you all should remember, right, on herox.com/GoAERO, the website that you're all very, very familiar with, you'll find everything that we talk about, all of the lectures that we've done, all of the presentations, etc., can all be found mostly under the documents and videos section. So you'll see here that any of the teams that haven't yet registered can complete their registration documents. And then what Sue and Jim are referring to are the FAA documents and resources. So these are the lectures that they've done previously on the certification registration process, as well as the slides from both them and the FAA, which is here. And you'll see all of the job aids as well are also linked, so you can easily access them.
Thanks, Nidhi.
Thanks, Nidhi. And now we'll step into the next slide, which is for the foreign teams, which we have multiple teams. The process is a little bit different for the foreign teams. We encourage the foreign teams to follow whatever their CAA's requirements are for the registration and for the airworthiness certificate. Every country is different. Some are further ahead than others. But if we can get you to have a level of foreign registration and a recognition of an airworthiness standard, it's easy for the FAA to issue a special flight authorization. So we want to use the special flight authorization process because it simplifies things for you. It also allows you to come to the United States to fly with your existing registration and requirements, and then go back to your country and continue to fly using that. If you choose to not follow the SFA process, the special flight authorization process, it would require you to deregister your aircraft in your country if you had done that. That is a difficult process to do, and we do not want you to do that. If you think that you're not going to be following the special flight authorization process and you want to certify in the United States, then we encourage you to just start down that process with us. We're going to start reaching out to the teams in the next couple of weeks to do introductory calls with Jim and I to talk about how to register your aircraft, how to get your airworthiness certificate, whether you're a foreign team coming in or you're a US team that's existing in the United States. Once again, the SFA process is a much simpler process to follow. If you are fortunate enough to have a country that has established some procedures to have a registration process for your UAS and to have a standard airworthiness permit or certificate that the FAA can recognize. There is on the site that Nidhi had just taken you to, it's the SFA application job aid. It's for the foreign teams, and it has about an 8-step process in it on what you need to do. So I suggest you go take a look at that and see if that's something you can meet. So when we set up our first call, we can start our conversation from there.
And if after looking at all of this, you still have questions, you're not clear on it, reach out through Nidhi and the group to us, and we'll try to answer them individually.
But we're hoping we can get those on the first call that we set up. So
And-
next slide. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, Sue and Jim, do you have a sense of timeline in terms of the SFA process so that teams understand, well in advance how they should sort of structure their application process?
Yes. So the timeline with the SFA process, just like the timeline with the aircraft certification process, and is essentially the same, meaning sooner is better. Okay. It can take at a minimum of 90 days. It can take upwards to 180 days to process. So as I said, we had a joke when I was in the FAA that you can register anything. You can register a piano with the FAA to get an N number. So we want you to go through the registration process immediately. It's probably the longest pole in the tent, and for foreign teams coming who are going to register to certify as a U.S. Aircraft, it's even a longer pole in the tent.
But it's the simplest thing you can be doing. That's the funny part about it. The application itself is pretty straightforward and simple. It's just the time it takes to get it in through the system
and process it. So again, there's go to the HeroX website, look at the presentation. There's a link to the CARES site, which is an automated process to register your aircraft, and it walks you through that. It allows you to digitally sign documents on there too, and to upload documents as well. So it has a very good step-by-step process for you.
So the only thing I would suggest here then is for the Canadian teams or the foreign teams is that if you are going through the SFA process, prior to your conversation with Sue and Jim, but certainly review the application process, if not having it completed, so that then, you can review it with Sue and Jim and make sure that it's, completed properly, that it's not missing anything, that anything you need to submit is correct. And this way they can help you make sure that it's all good and that you can expedite it and get it filed.
Thank you, Nidhi. And then there's another piece to this that I'd like to talk about. So this is for your own testing in advance of the competition. So if you're going to come to the United States, we are identifying UAS test sites that you could go into to test fly your aircraft, to fly that there, or a location close to NASA Ames that you could do that as well. So if you're going to go into a test site, a minimum requirement is having your registration certificate to go in. We will be working directly with the FAA and the UAS test sites that are close to where you might want to bring your aircraft for testing prior to the event, so that we can help you set that up and get you registered and utilizing that. There'll be more information to come as we talk to you one-on-one about that piece of it. So at the fly-off, you must have your aircraft registered, US or foreign. You must have an airworthiness certificate. You must have a special flight authorization, or whatever the requirements are if we have it set up as a UAS test site, which essentially is the equivalent of an SFA or airworthiness certificate. As we said, this can take a minimum of 90 days, typically up to 180 days to accomplish. So the sooner we start, the better. With those airworthiness certificates or special flight authorizations is what we call a COA. It's the airspace authorization for flying a UAS aircraft. You will have a standardized one that's assigned to your certificate. We also will have in place waivered airspace for an aviation event, because as Sky had mentioned, there will be spectators there. So the aviation event waiver ensures that we have all the appropriate safety distances and requirements to protect the spectators who are observing you demonstrate. And also part of that, you will have to validate through a technical inspection process through the FAA that all of your paperwork is in order and in place. The waivered airspace will be up to 3,000 feet AGL and 1 to 3 nautical mile radius, but you will be constrained by the requirements of the competition. It'll be daytime only. Everybody will be required to have remote ID. And so now we're going to remote ID. So next slide, please. So to operate the UAS in the US under Part 91, no human pilot, crew, or passengers are allowed on board in flight. Okay, it's an unmanned aircraft. You can have a total operating crew on the ground. It's limited to 2 persons for staging, deploying the aircraft for all missions. That can include a visual observer. A pilot operator, and again, an alternate pilot is authorized, must have an FAA pilot certificate. The FAA Order 8900.1 establishes additional requirements for visual observers and specific requirements for the pilot. Okay. And so that will be included once you get your certification. And as we are working with you with the details of your specific certification, those things will be made more clear and defined. Next slide. Okay, that's it for us. We look forward to any questions you have, and we look forward to working with you as we go forward towards the fly-off. We're here to support you and to help coordinate things with the FAA so that you have the right support, and then working with the CAAs as well to ensure you have the right support there.
And please don't wait until the last minute. Reach out when you have time and try to ask the questions you need answers to. Thanks.
Thank you, Sue and Jim. So just a reminder, Gardner Aviation will be reaching out to the Stage 2 registered teams in the next few weeks in order to have calls with you to walk you through these details. But prior to, please make sure that you have read all of the materials and watched the presentations. It will really help you to understand the information they've already provided and really come armed to the conversation with the questions that you need answered so that you can move quickly through this process. Gwen.
Okay, thank you, Nidhi. Hello, all. So for the fly-off, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. For the fly-off, we are in the early stages of planning. So we thought what might be most helpful to all of you is to provide an example of our fly-off that we had for GoFly. We are using this as a model, and we'll hopefully build upon it. But I want to be very clear, all of this is in the early planning stages, so we hope to have these a similar schedule, but we are working on it. The point of the fly-off is not only to be able to crown the winners, award the prizes, celebrate the innovation, but also to provide you with a launching pad for potential commercialization and certainly deployment and the ability to take your flyer to the next level after the competition. So to that end, we are in the process of working on a multi-day event that allows you access to our sponsors, the top people at our sponsors, investors, VCs, the regulators, as well as future partnerships and collaborators for you. So what we expect to unfold, or I should say how we did this in the past and what we are working towards, is that it is a 3-day event where for example, a Thursday, we start with an evening welcoming event. And last time we had the opening ceremony at Hiller Aviation Museum. And so all of the teams gathered, all of the partners gathered, and there was a nice cocktail party with a lot of press and publicity. So that was the opening part. Then on the Friday of the weekend, we had what we called our VIP day. And during that day, we had all of our teams, and they were flying missions, or the idea was to fly the missions at that time. And while that was occurring, we also had a team tent where each team gets their own area on the actual in front of Hangar 1, which was the large structure that we showed previously when Sky just showed the layout. And so teams are interacting with visitors and with VIPs on that day. So too, we had a full day of talks, and on that day, we had the chief engineer, the CTO of Boeing speaking. We had the director of aeronautics at NASA, and just tremendous engineers, tremendous partners. The regulators, heads of the FAA were there as well as our organizational partners. And so it was a very high level day of TED Talks and interaction for all of our teams, while there was also flying. Then we had in the next day, which was the Saturday for us, we had an innovation festival and a flight festival where all of the teams were flying. That was the day, and that will be the day to crown the winners in each of the missions. Once again, tons of press and publicity. And this is also a public day where we expect to have several thousands of people there. We will have an air show. So in addition to team flying, we will also have an air show. We expect the California Air National Guard to do a para-rescue jump as part of that air show. And then we will also have a STEM festival for 1,000 or so school-age children with different activities. So it is also your chance to not only glean global press and publicity and interaction, but also have a give back with the next generation. And then we have, while the cameras are rolling, the big ticket event where checks are presented to all of the winners. And so it is both an innovation festival and a global opportunity for press and publicity, as well as the opportunity for you to interact with our sponsors, with our partners, with those who are not affiliated with GoAERO, but are interested in the ecosystem. And we see this really as not only this golden moment for all of you, but really a launching pad to the what next. So that is what we are working on. Once again, early stages. Once again, this schedule is just to show you a guideline of what we are working towards. But this is the start of our planning. We expect to be able to announce exact dates sometime within, let's say, the next 2 months. So you will know. Hopefully, we understand the sooner the better. We are working towards that. But we are expecting to have a very wonderful event for all of you to be able to showcase your innovation and, of course, your flying.
Great, thank you. Just a reminder, guys, just use the Q&A button for any questions you might have along the way. We will get to them very shortly. And then we just wanted to take a moment, the last few moments, to remind you of all of the incredible benefits that we have available for you. Some of you may have been at the summit this past May. Many of our partners were there offering incredible presentations on all of the benefits that they're offering to the teams. You can see some of them here. You can go to this website to see all of those details. And as a reminder, the presentations, both the video as well as their actual slides themselves, are all available to you. So everyone that presented at the summit, from the FA to Sue and Jim, to all of our partners, to all of the experts also that were there, all of their presentations and videos are also available on the HeroX website on the Documents and Videos tab that I mentioned to you previously. So we encourage you to review those materials. Contact information for all of those partners is also available there. So you can reach out to those partners directly should you have any questions, or if you have any trouble getting feedback from them, which you shouldn't. Feel free, of course, to include us in those conversations at info@goaeroprize.com, and we're happy to liaise with them as well. But I cannot emphasize enough, these tools are incredible. They will be very, very useful to you in the next year and a half. So we do encourage you to check them out. And then finally, I'll end with our mentoring program. You may have seen an email or two from us. We will be matching a primary technical mentor to each of the registered Stage 2 teams, unless you've told us otherwise. We are just in the process of finalizing all of those experts. We have an incredible roster of people that are excited to work with you. You will have an opportunity to have regular calls with them 1 or 2 times a month based on their schedule and yours. They're going to offer you technical guidance and advice and really help you think through your design decisions and any trade-offs with decisions that you're making. They're going to share their own lessons learned, right? These are folks that have, some of them, decades of experience in engineering, aircraft design, and they will really be able to offer you things that they've learned along their own journeys of building and designing aircraft. And then really offer you perspective on problem solving and just making sure that you're sticking to a realistic timeline. We recognize that you have in a year and a half, but you also just have a year and a half, and there's quite a bit that you need to get done. So hopefully they can help you stay on track. As I mentioned, we're finalizing those details now, and we hope to be able to make those introductory emails within the next week or so that you can schedule your calls perhaps by the end of this year or early next year. So we look forward to that offering for you. So I will end there and open the floor to questions. Looks like we have one so far. Sue and Jim, I think this might be for you. What if the drone is 55 pounds? Do we still have to register the aircraft? Which test sites are currently able to certify drones over 55 pounds? If there are currently none, then which ones are expected to be able to certify drones over 55 pounds and when?
Okay.
Many components there, so I'm happy to repeat.
Okay, so the first one, 55 pounds or less. So in order to be able to participate in the competition, your aircraft is going to be over 55 pounds. So that is just not going to apply to you at that point. You asked about the UAS test sites, and you're correct. Many of them are 55 pounds or less, but many are in the works now of getting an additional authorization for larger UAS. And so that's why we're working directly with them to identify those that will have the capabilities and the authorization to support you. So we can talk about that when you contact us. But there are some, and as the year progresses, I expect more to be added to that list.
Did that cover the question, Nitty?
Can I Adam, can you please also clarify when you said that an FAA pilot certificate will be required or equivalent, that a Part 107 license is not sufficient?
Yes, that's a very good point. The rules of Part 107 do not apply to aircraft that are larger than 55 pounds. You now are operating under Part 91, and the Part 61 requirements apply. So your operating limitations, if you have an experimental airworthiness certificate issued by the FAA, establishes the minimum pilot requirement. So it could be as at a level of a sport pilot or higher. Again, you are not, this is a competition. So in competition, it's not considered a commercial operation. So you aren't required to have as high of a commercial certificate. So we'll get some specific clarification on that, but right now I believe you could have a sport pilot certificate or higher. Any other questions?
Yes. Is there a security clearance required? Ah, is there a
Can we
security?
go to the very related question of, is the Canadian SFOC sufficient?
Sure.
If you're familiar with that certification.
I don't have an answer for that specifically, but I will run that down. Um, Again, it's going to, in Canada, you're going to be required to have an SFA from the FAA. And so they may recognize that as meeting the requirements for the SFA. And I'll start running that down now so we can answer that question when we talk directly.
Thank you. Is there a security clearance required for non-US citizens to attend NASA Ames? Several team members with a valid Canadian work visa, but they are not Canadian citizens, or they are Canadian citizens but have a different nationality.
NASA does require um, uh, forms to be filled out. We will have all of those available to teams well ahead of time. There are certain countries from which its citizens would not be allowed in certain areas of NASA. And there are different parts where that have different security clearances. But they generally coincide with GoAERO's registration requirements, such that there are certain countries that cannot participate in GoAERO because GoAERO would not be allowed to pay them the prize money. And that obviously has nothing to do with GoAERO. That's just a government regulation. And so NASA would follow that as well. And they generally align that way. At this moment, to the best of our knowledge, we do not believe that any of our GoAERO team members will have difficulty being on NASA's campus. Obviously, we do not have all information at our fingertips at the moment, but we will be supplying that information over the weeks and months ahead.
So another logistics related question then, Gwen, is when we set up at the venue and leave our stuff there over 3 days, or do we take everything away at the end of every day? Well, as in, can we leave all of our equipment and things like this safely on site?
So last time we allowed our teams to leave their equipment in their team tent on site. There are certain requirements for both safety and security, but the expectation is that the tent area that you have for your team and your team alone is available to you for those 3 days.
Gwen, just to piggyback on that a little bit, I would add that there's going to be security for the overall site, but not individual tents or paddock spaces.
And
Carrie, go ahead.
Just so everybody is aware, this is Kevin O'Grady, who is our event producer, who will be leading all the setup and the running of the entire final fly-off.
Okay. Sky, on the competition website, it says early application for qualifying is advantageous since registration may be capped.
Yeah.
Does this mean the number of teams that can register and qualify at stage 3 is limited?
So I will say it is theoretically limited, but it is extremely unlikely to be limited. There would have to be a lot of teams who did not participate in stage 1 or 2, who would qualify late in order for that to come into play. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. However, if that helps incentivize you to get qualified early, then all the better. It's really just a matter of how being able to give everybody at least one mission attempt at each mission. Our venue will not, for example, let us set up more than 2 productivity mission courses in parallel. And so each course can only run, maybe like half a dozen mission attempts in a day. And so given the length of the event and the event space, like the math is pretty simple in terms of where the cap might be for competitors. Currently, with the teams that we have participating, it's very unlikely that it will be capped.
Great. Sue and Jim, any experience with working with aircraft and certification out of Australia?
Yes, we have. And again, this is something you would be required to have a special flight authorization to that aligns with your registration and your airworthiness certification there. I can't, we'll have to talk about the specifics of it, but I know that Sandy Yamani, who is our lead FAA person on the aircraft certification side, has worked with Australia before as well.
Right, and I think the best way to answer that is if you have a specific question about maybe the CAA in Australia, send that to us and we can try to track it down also.
Great. So Baha, then if you continue to have questions about that, you can send us those details at info@goaeroprize.com, and we can work with you on those details. In the meantime, it will be important for you to complete all your registration paperwork so that we can make sure that we can move forward appropriately. For stage 3, should the vehicle be 1-to-1 ratioed, or can it be scaled down for the competition? Sky?
So if I understand that question correctly, you need to have a system that can do the tasks, right? So we don't care what your system is designed to do as a commercial application. It just needs to be able to do the tasks and the missions for the GoAERO Fly-Off. So that means that it needs to be a full scale for the GoAERO payload. So it needs to be able to carry, for example, the 125-pound mannequin. But if you have a kind of an existing platform that is more capable than that and you want to scale it down just for the competition, that's fine. But scaled down, subscale, this is not a subscale competition. There won't be any kind of 55-pound or under vehicles. These are all going to be large aircraft capable of carrying serious payloads.
Great. Other questions, comments? We also welcome any comments. As I mentioned early on, if there are areas where specifically you're looking for support, knowledge, information, please let us know. So I think maybe Kevin and Gardner can help us on this front. How do foreign teams usually bring their flyers to the US, as batteries do not fly on passenger planes?
Definitely deferring to Sue on that one.
So there is a way to do it, because I know we had accomplished that for the Go Fly event, that there were a couple there. And what I'm not positive about is if they purchased their batteries here in the United States and utilize them that way. But Kevin, I think that's something we need to run down, and I'll work with the FAA too to get some answers there.
No, I know the Japanese did send them in, yeah, but they didn't ship them with the aircraft either. So it's a good question, though. I think we need to run it down.
Yes, and particularly given that this time all of the aircraft are UAS and they're going to have batteries.
So, not necessarily. So that's a good time to bring up that on site, the only fuel available for purchase might be Jet A. So if you need avgas or MoGas or something like that, you'll need to plan the logistics of going offsite yourself and bringing your own gas cans on site for if you need it. And even then, it may or may not be the case that we'll have the fuel truck at Moffett Field be able to come to the paddock area for you. You might still want to have the gas cans.
Kevin, did you want to add anything there?
No, agreed on the Jet A side of things. That's a great point.
Can I ask for some, just to get Sue and Jim to clarify a couple of things? So you said the remote ID will be required at the event. So that means that we will not try to make that an FAA, what do they call that? Like the recognized identification area. So we're not going to try to get it to be exempted from the remote ID requirement.
That's a very good question, Sky. So a couple things that we are working on right now is if we actually have, I call it an umbrella, a UAS test site umbrella over the site. And if we do, that will give us some latitude there with the remote ID. So those are discussions in progress, and we should have, that information within the next 2 months.
Okay.
But if we don't, then it's an exemption underneath the waiver, or an exception, I should say, under the waiver. And typically, they do not accept that. So we'll have to, that's the advantage of the UAS test site umbrella.
Yeah. And then so teams know these there are standalone modules that will enable you to meet this remote ID requirement, and they're lightweight, low power, and low cost. Just so you know, so if we're not able to do that.
And Sky, if I can add, and that will be particularly important if you're coming to do some testing in advance, and you're not at a UAS test site per se, but you have got a COA. It may require the remote ID for that as well.
And then can I also, Sue, can you guys clarify? We talked about registering and registering early. Do I need to have my physical aircraft built in order to start that registration process?
No, good question. You do not. You need to have established who is registering the aircraft. You have the opportunity to select the N number that you want. And if you're a foreign applicant registering or foreign, you need to have some additional criteria that establishes somebody in the United States.
And serial number also.
And a serial number.
Identify.
So you can have a serial number, and who's going to operate or who's going to own the aircraft is all you need at that point.
Good question, Sky. Any other questions?
We don't have any open questions right now, so we can leave it open for just another moment or so. As a reminder, everything that we've shared so far is on herox.com. We will follow up then with some of these open-ended questions in terms of logistics and that sort of thing. Keep in mind that, again, as Gwen mentioned, all of these details will become available to you. We will make sure that you know and understand the logistics of getting your aircraft on site well in advance. I think Kevin had spoken about this at the summit as well, but making sure that your teams have visas. We understand foreign teams. Even if you are a US-based team, also you might have some logistics that you need to consider. So we will make sure that you are well prepared and understand all of those requirements.
I would say, oh, I'm sorry. Please continue, Nidhi.
No, I'll just say that, as we've mentioned, we'll be in touch in the next week or so about a mentor. So please stay tuned for that. As a reminder, The mentorship program and other benefits that are being offered are for registered teams only. So I know that we have many registered stage 2 teams or GoAERO teams on the webinar today, but there are some folks that have not yet completed their paperwork. So please be sure that you do. You can easily find a link to all of those documents, again, on herox.com. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. But just a reminder that that paperwork is required in order to continue forward with the competition. One last logistical question here that's coming up is, can we spend the night at the venue?
There is camping. There's RV spaces. We have to understand how many spaces we have access to. I'll get back to you on that. It's actually outside the gates, but adjacent to the facility. But let me get you some details on that. I'm assuming you're talking about RV camping. If the question could be more specific there, Nitty, there's no tent camping anywhere on the site.
Yeah, if Murad, if you want to specify a little bit more, but also just know that there is like a hotel, like NASA has its own little hotel that's within 5 minutes of the venue. So that's where many teams or folks end up staying also. But
Actually, let me be clear on this. So,
sure.
GoAERO will be entering into agreements with hotels within the area to provide discounted so that the hotels can offer discounted room rates to both teams and attendees. So that is part of what we will be doing over the next months ahead. But in terms of the question is, can you stay in your tent overnight, your team tent overnight? No, you may not. So to be very clear on that. Also, want to add in terms of immediate next steps. I believe most of you are official GoAERO Stage 2 and Stage 3 teams. The paperwork that you need to have filled out is the master team agreement, the media rights agreement, and you need to have insurance. It is the same paperwork that you needed for the previous Stage 2. If you've done that already, fantastic. If you have not, you need to fill out that same paperwork that the other teams have already filled out. Nothing has changed in terms of that paperwork at this point. So that is what is required. In terms of immediate next steps, we will be providing you with your primary technical mentor, and you will have access to a time with both Sue and Jim Gardner, as they have alluded to, or as they have described today on this seminar. So those are two opportunities and frankly necessary next steps that you all should be taking. As Nidhi spoke about as well, there are a tremendous number of benefits available. We would encourage you to utilize them. You do not need to do so, but they are there for your benefit. And so look them over and use them should you wish. So too, if there is anything specifically that our GoAERO team can help you with, you can always reach out to us at info@GoAERO Prize, and we will continue to help you reach the fly-off. And so if there's anything that we can do for you, do not hesitate to contact us. We are very much looking forward to supporting you on your way to the fly-off. We have an amazing team to help you on your journeys, and we look forward to seeing what great things that you create and to really helping you to save lives, because that's what this competition is all about. So I thank you for your time today. Nidhi, if there's anything else you want to follow up with.
We're all set. Thank you so much.
Great. All right. Thank you all. Best of luck to you. And we wish you joyous holidays, no matter where you are or what you celebrate. We hope that the end of this year and all of 2026 brings you great happiness, success, and everything that you wish for yourselves. Take care, all.